Good afternoon. I'm Mary Ann Taylor, Executive Assistant to Mayor Schaefer at the City of Summersville. I'd like to thank Elizabeth Bragg and Michael Williams from the Nicholas County Board of Education for inviting me to moderate today's panel discussion. Also, thank you to all the panelists here today who will identify the seriousness of chronic absenteeism and some positive solutions to improve attendance. Thank you to SCTV for today's videography and to Kelly Weitzel for serving as our timekeeper. The COVID pandemic changed families' lives and the culture of education. In past decades, there has never been a question about school attendance. Kids went to school. Today, chronic absenteeism has become a new normal nationwide. This is translated into missing 10% of a school year, leading to difficulty learning to read by the 3rd grade, achieving in middle school, and even graduating from high school. Before the COVID pandemic, 8 million students were affected by chronic absence. Today, chronic absence has almost doubled. According to federal data, nearly 14.7 million students, or 29.7% of the nation's students, were chronically absent in the 21-22 school year. According to West Virginia Kids Counts, the absentee rate in West Virginia was 35% in the 21-22 school year. These numbers are staggering. Chronic absenteeism is a pressing issue. We cannot risk the future of our children. Reducing absence will require the work of each community. Today, we're taking the first step to identify the definition of chronic absenteeism and the root of why our kids are not attending school. This discussion will build public awareness and leverage resources to address a problem that we can solve if we work together. So before we begin our discussion, I would invite each panelist to introduce themselves and their significant role in our community. And we'll start with Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon. Michael Williams. I'm the Director of Attendance and Student Services for Nicholas County Schools.
I'm Robert Schaefer, the Mayor of the City of Summersville.
Gary Johnson, Mayor of Richwood, previously served as judge for 24 years of prosecuting attorney.
Chip Perrine, I'm the president of Nicholas County Board of Education.
Terrence Bames, Superintendent of Schools in Nicholas County.
Gary Roberts, Nicholas County Commission.
I'm Noah Roberts, a 9th grade freshman at Richwood High School.
Aaron Evans, Juvenile Probation Officer and Teen Court Administrator.
Dr. Anita Stewart, the Health Officer at the Nicholas County Health Department.
Dr. Mark Tomshow, Pediatrician in Summersville.
Thank you. So as we begin the questions, each panelist will have 3 minutes to answer. Kelly will hold up a green card when you have 1 minute remaining and a bright pink card at 3-minute mark. So we'll begin with Mr. Williams. Some people are under the mistaken impression that chronic absenteeism and truancy are interchangeable terms. Please explain the difference between truancy and chronic absenteeism.
Yes, ma'am. For most of my career, I've worked with truancy. And what truancy basically is unexcused absences, meaning a student misses school without an excuse. That's what truancy is defined as. A lot of my career, we've worked in one of my least favorite jobs in the school system is filing criminal complaints in magistrate court on parents or filing juvenile petitions on students. And so we're trying to set a precedence in regards to this with catching students early. Chronic absences is counting all absences, excused absences, unexcused absences, and suspensions. So that basically is the definition, because as you said, with chronic absenteeism, students are having difficulty learning to read by 3rd grade. They're struggling to achieve in middle school, and they're not graduating from high school based on their chronic absenteeism.
Mr. Dean, I gave some national and state statistics in the introduction today. What was the rate of chronic absenteeism in West Virginia during the 23-24 school year? And where does Nicholas County rank in the state?
Well, we reached out to Georgia Hughes Webb, who works for the State Department of Education, to get those facts. And they don't actually have a ranking for how the counties do compared to each other, but we did come up with a figure. In Nicholas County, 27.8% of our students are chronically absent, which in the state average is between 26 and 33, so we're right in the middle of that number. So that's 1 out of every 3 students are chronically absent.
Thank you. Mr. Perrine, in the research I've done for this discussion, one of the items I came across is that some students do not attend school because they don't feel welcome. What can the Nicholas County Board of Education do to help students feel welcome at school?
Well, I believe it starts when they get on the bus. The bus driver has to greet them when they get on the bus. It's very important to know by name. And I know just when I taught at Panther Creek, we had the practice of our principal stood at the door and a couple of other staff members, and they greeted every child and called them by name and, always encouraged them to have a good day. And then as teachers, we stood at our doors as each child came in. And once in a while, something would come up, but we wouldn't be right there at the door. But we made it a priority to make sure they felt well when they got there. Now, I know there's other schools that do that, and I don't know that all schools do that, but that's one thing that we could do to make them feel well. And I'm sure there's others.
So is that one thing that the board is willing to take on to encourage the personnel to do that?
Yes.
In the school year?
Yes.
Hey, Dr. Stewart, what hurdles keep children from getting to school?
Thank you. I think if you've ever been a parent, getting kids to school sometimes is challenging. So just remembering that in the whole scheme of things, this is what's best for the student. Nationally, the reasons that kids miss school are physical health, mental health, safety concerns, and social barriers. And Nicholas County is no different than across the country. In the 2023-2024 school year, absences related to illness in Nicholas County were around 48%. So of those chronic absences, we know that a lot of that was related to illness. Across the country, that's leading with asthma and dental pain are the 2 chronic things that are causing kids to be absent. Also, we know that chronic disabilities can cause kids to be absent. The second thing, which I think is the most striking and the most concerning in our county, is mental health. And we're seeing trends in a very concerning direction related to mental health in Nicholas County. According to the Student Risk Behavioral Survey, which is performed in Nicholas County schools every other year, in the 2022 data, almost 30% of students in high school, so the 9th and 11th grade students, reported thoughts of suicide. And about 7% of those said they thought a lot or often about suicide. And of those, 14.95% of those had to seek medical attention for attempted suicide. Those numbers are striking. We really need to pay attention to those things here. Also, in our local emergency department, we had 9 students last year that were seen in our emergency department for overdose. So this is something that is a significant hurdle for our students, and we need to be paying attention to. Other things that we talk about are social determinants of health, things like hunger, unstable housing, transportation, feeling safe, poverty. We have one of the highest poverty rates in our region. So really, how do we improve poverty here? So thinking about what resources we have, how can we help students overcome those hurdles, and how can we leverage schools to really be that safe space to overcome some of those barriers?
Dr. Tomsha, Healthcare providers are uniquely positioned to address chronic absenteeism. So how often do you get a request to write an excuse for a child you see in your office, and the parent is asking you to write the excuse for dates they did not attend school before the visit? Do you have that happen in your office? And if you do, how do you handle that?
Yes, the dreaded school excuse. We get that, dozens of times every day. And like any medical encounter, we start with the history of the illness, and we make a diagnosis and then a prognosis. And those are the determinants of how long we think that child will need to stay home or be out of school. And it may be that the child became ill that morning, or he may have been ill for several days before that. And if it's consistent with the diagnosis, then we give an appropriate number of days of excuse. It becomes problematic sometimes when they ask for additional days after the diagnosis, especially if it's outside the realm of what we think that diagnosis would require. And we get many calls afterwards, and I think that's almost more of a problem than the days they missed before. And we talk to the parent, we ask why, or what symptoms there are that the child is still encountering, whether they should come back to the office, and we try to make a judgment if the parent is being reasonable in that request, and usually they are. And if not, we say that those would need to be excuses that the mother would write because it was outside the realm of the normal absentee visits that we'd expect for that diagnosis. We do have some new guidelines with some of the illnesses that have come along, such as COVID and, of course, with the flu. And we're a little more liberal at getting them back to school now. Instead of the 7 days, 10 days, 5 days that it was for COVID and changing, it's now a much more reasonable. We wait until the child has been fever-free for at least 24 hours without medication, and the symptoms are improving. They don't have to be completely well, and we try to instill that in the patients. We also keep up little signs in the office about when they should keep their child home and how long they should keep their child home. So it really comes down to education. But yes, it is a problem, and we try to be reasonable with the parents and try to give an adequate number based on the diagnosis.
Okay. Noah, from a student's perspective, why do you think kids are not coming?
There's a myriad of issues surrounding absence, but within and outside of school. But I think perhaps the most influential factor of kids not coming to school is that their parents just don't see the value in education anymore. I just froze. What was that? I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't remember. There's so many more opportunities out in the world than just, you can be a farmer or a coal miner or a mechanic. And, while those are very respectable and important positions, we need those people. There's so much more. I mean, there's so many more opportunities out in the world, and we can be so much more. But, when you, for lack of a better words, don't make it out the holler long enough to see those opportunities, you can't see the value in coming to school. I don't know.
Well, thank you. That's an interesting perspective there. If I could just follow up with one question. Do you think that the kids in the holler are just following their parents' role model?
Yeah, I mean, you do as you see. And when you live in somewhere like West Virginia where people are very set in the ways that they've used for however long, it's just hard to put value in, attending something that you don't see any point in.
Tradition.
Well, that's actually going to lead into your question, Mr. Roberts, because responsibility and attendance, these are what are called soft skills, and these are characteristics that carry over to adulthood. So if you don't see the value, of going to school because you don't see the value in it, your parents don't see the value in it. So my question to you then is, how does chronic absenteeism teach these children then not to be responsible, not to be dependable, which are two critical soft skills that we all need in adulthood? Whether you live on the farm or you live in the city, these are skills that we all need.
I think if we look at how the educational system is set up, it's set to mirror and prepare you for the workforce. You're expected to get up and you have a certain time you have to be at school. That doesn't vary. You have a certain time that you have lunch. That doesn't vary. You have certain responsibilities that are assigned to you that do not vary. So I think the fact that through school attendance and proper and prompt school attendance, you actually build good habits and routines. You learn about and develop self-discipline. You set priorities based on your educational requirements. And I think also going along with that, it comes in your accountability and consequences. So you have some natural consequences. If you're attending school, you have natural consequences of not getting your homework done, things like that. Like, in elementary school, you might lose a recess. Later on in life, you're competing for a scholarship, to go into college. There's just natural traits, I think, that come along with the school system. And when you're absent, and especially chronic absenteeism, I think that's going to follow you through life, and you're going to exhibit those same behaviors when you hit the workforce. So I think our lack of workforce engagement that we're seeing right now is a direct result of the chronic absenteeism that we're experiencing in the school system. So I think I had one more I wanted to go there. It just, one of the things I jotted down is that consistently missing school can signal a lack of respect for those expectations and diminish perceived importance of meeting commitments. So once again, setting those priorities and making sure that you're doing where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be doing what you're supposed to be doing, for lack of better words to simplify it.
Hey, Mr. Evans, I know you wear several hats, but this question is actually for your minister hat. Do you have families that come to the church looking for help because they struggle with transportation, homelessness, or lack of access to food and clothing, which might be reasons that prohibit them from sending their children to school?
Yes, there are. We've had several families who have come to the churches, and they've needed help. I don't believe that has hindered them from going to school. I believe Nicholas County, one thing that we have is we are we're a community that likes to help each other. We build on each other. So if there's a family that needs food, clothing, they need help in any way, there's a lot of churches and just a lot of community members and community agencies that step up and provide the assistance that's needed. Generally, people in this county don't go hungry. There are multiple churches. I know there's a program where the Board of Education provides food twice a month to a school for the weekends, and my church, we do 2 other weekends. So there's a lot of people who are reaching out to help. The problem that I see is a lack of transportation. There's a lot of families that either don't have, there's not a licensed driver in the family, whether they had their license suspended, whether they've had their license revoked, or whether they just never got their license to begin with, or they have a lack of, they don't have cars that run. So we have a transportation issue in this county. If a child misses the bus, then there's nobody who's going to be able to bring them to school. We do have the MTA, but the MTA doesn't go everywhere, and it doesn't go to the places that it needs to go to at the correct times. We don't have Uber, we don't have taxi services, we don't have public transportation. There's a lack of transportation, and that is a serious issue. In some of the areas, like in the city of Richwood or like in the city of Summersville, you can generally walk to most anywhere you need to go. But if you go to places in the outskirts, you go down Carl Mountain, or you go down to Mount Lookout or Mount Nebo, you go up Tioga or anywhere else, you struggle to find ways to get around. The churches, and you can see that the churches that have the best Sunday services or Wednesday services, they have the best bus transportation. It's called the bus ministry. And those are the ways that you're going to get kids to get into schools and get involved in activities.
Mayor Johnson, do you think that chronic absenteeism affects the long-term vitality of a community?
Absolutely, there's no question. I mean, you look around our area now, and we're looking for tradesmen. You know, you can't find a plumber, you can't find contractors, you know, and people with soft skills that will show up and work every day. You know, you have to go through 3 or 4 people in order to find someone who will come to work every day. And the education part is, you know, whether it's a academic degree or a trades degree, those same skills are required. They require you to show up, they require you to do your job, and they require you to give extra if that's what needs to happen. We, you know, if you don't learn those skills, then you're not going to have a job, no matter how smart you are or how intellectual you are. And you know, I think we're suffering the effects of that right now. I know when I first came here, we had 25, 26 lawyers. I think we have 4 practicing lawyers, 4 or 5 now, and you know, which affects the ability of our community to thrive and to be on top. And the only way to solve that is education. And I agree with Noah. We have to teach parents the value of education. Now, the way that was taught when I went to high school was, you know, if you want to make more money, you work harder and you know, go to school. And I don't know that that's a goal now, but it was always a goal for the people that I knew. And I don't know how you teach that to someone. And you know, I've dealt with truancy for 25 years, or probably longer than that when I was prosecutor. And you know, you have to do it with a multidisciplinary approach. You know, one person can't do it, and DHHR has to be involved. You know, we used probation, we used Seneca. We tried to involve everybody to determine whether the problem was the schools, the child, or the parents, because it could be any of those 3. And we tried to address those through the multidisciplinary approach. And you know, if we don't have an educated workforce, where you know, we can't progress.
I mean, as I said at the very beginning, and you know, decades ago, there was never a question about going to school. Exactly what you said. You went to school, but the mindset of parents today, that's different.
I agree.
They do not see. Some of them do not see the values of education. Mayor Schaefer, we have just heard that chronic absenteeism affects the soft skills. So this will carry over to the workforce when these students become adults. So it's essential for businesses to be engaged with schools. How do you think these partnerships between businesses and schools can help to decrease chronic absenteeism?
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of what I have to say has kind of been highlighted already. But first of all, I think that what we need is a better education with the schools and our businesses, because a lot of businesses think they're a partnership in education because they pay for a banner and it hangs in the school. And it goes much deeper than that. I think a lot of the chronic problems that we find in youth, and they've been highlighted with health and mental health and chronic absences, I think all of those are relative to the workforce and everything that the businesses are experiencing too. So, you know, without a doubt, I think, and then again, I would say to businesses, a lot of times businesses think that being a partnership in education is all about dollars. It's not. There's a lot of things that a business can do partnering with the school system, sending their employees to read on read days and getting involved in other activities that happen in our schools that don't cost money. And, you know, ideally, I think that education all the way around, sometimes I don't think that businesses relate to the chronic problems in the school to their businesses. And it really is. It all starts on that very foundation of, you know, how we educate kids and how we deal with the problems that they have in our school system, because eventually you're dealing with that in the workforce. So I think it's critical for business to have a partnership in education. And if we could build a community that's built around all of us in the belief that everything that's happening at the foundation of, building our youth, it will someday have an impact on us all. And what we all want is that to be a positive impact. So without a doubt, it's important for us to have businesses involved with our education.
Okay, so that is the end of round one, which is a fantastic answers to these questions and a good base for what we're trying to, the education we're trying to get out there. So the questions for round two, we're going to discuss chronic absenteeism's academic and health consequences, which we've already touched on a little bit. We're also going to talk about the value of sending to schools, which we've already touched on, and expand on these, and community engagement. So we'll begin again with Mr. Williams. What are the most common reasons for chronic absenteeism among the students in grades K through 12?
Yes, in analyzing data every year for the 23-24 school year, the number one was illnesses verified by a parent or a guardians, meaning that the school system receives what we call a parent note, and parent notes are up to 5 each semester. So that was the number one. We also seen many illnesses verified by a clinician, whether that's a medical provider, whether it's a mental health provider, a specialist. So those were the two big ones. Of course, the unexcused absences was up there, but some other top ones was health exclusions, illnesses in family, when a family member is ill and a student doesn't want to attend school. And lastly, again, medical or dental appointments. And I like something that Noah said is just the parental engagement or the lack of parents ensuring a quality education. Currently, and we're a week and a half into school, and we're already getting requests by numerous families and parents wanting to go to the beach when the rates are lower, going to Disney when there's not so many people, and asking schools to excuse their students from school for these trips. Many of them non-educational trips, but rare just due to funding. And so what we're hoping to change in the school system is that mentality of school, primary, first in families, and secondary is the fun.
Yeah. One thing I've possibly too, you talked about doctor and dental appointments is, to try to work with the healthcare providers to see if they can accommodate those appointments at the end of the, after school, so the kids don't have to be pulled out of school, or if they do have to be pulled out of school, that the parents understand child has to go back to school after the appointment.
That's the important thing. Dr. Tom Show and his staff do a wonderful job. They're open of an evenings. They're open on Saturdays, some Sundays. But again, if they're there for a well child checkup of an hour, instead of missing a whole day of school, we would like for them to return to school.
I think that will be a good step to make a difference.
Yes.
Mr. B, what are the academic consequences of chronic absenteeism?
Well, chronic absences lead to a variety of issues that affect student academic performance. And here's just a few examples. When students aren't in school, they lack student interactions with their peers and with their teacher. One of the things we have learned from businesses is they want us to teach students how to work together on things. But they're going to get to workforce, they have to work together. Well, if they're not in school, they don't get those opportunities. In a lot of our classrooms, our teachers are putting them in groups and letting them work together to solve problems, which I think is a really good thing. But when they're not there, they can't participate in that. They're also missing the lack of guidance from their instructor. It's not the same getting an assignment, taking home time, figuring out how to do it, when you haven't been in class to hear the instructor tell you how to do it. So learning to follow directions or get the directions even to start with, it is a major problem. Also, when students miss a lot of school and they come back to school, then they spend all that time catching up on what they've already missed, and they miss what they're supposed to be doing that day. So it's like a vicious cycle. They never do actually catch up unless they do a lot of things at home, which you hear all the time from parents, well, my kids go to school to be educated, they're not going to do homework. So you have that battle to fight. And spending way too much of their time working on missed assignments. They also, when they miss a lot of school, they lose interest in school. And their self-esteem drops because their grades drop or their performance drops. And they feel pressured to do better. And so poor academic performance occurs. When students miss a lot of school, it can lead to retention, which is a dirty word in my book. I do not like to see students retained. My philosophy has always been not to retain students after first grade, because I think it does more harm than good. Studies show that students that are retained have a much higher percentage of dropouts because they've been retained and they're a lot older than their peers, and so they drop out of school. But parents also have this feeling that, well, my child's in kindergarten, my child's in first grade, so how much can they miss? Well, they miss a lot. Those are the formative years when they need to be in school as much as any other time, if not more. And finally, a lot of the students, as some of the others have mentioned, we've had this situation occur, do not have enough credits because they've missed them at school to graduate. We have students coming in as sophomores and juniors or becoming seniors, and they got 10 or 12 credits, and they're way short, and they can't possibly graduate. So those are some of the issues that I see.
But it's pretty significant issues. Mr. Perrine, we've already heard from several people that parents don't see the value of sending their children to school. So how can the Nicholas County Board of Education change the mindset of parents?
Well, first of all, this is probably going to raise some eyes or eyebrows, but it's going to have to start in the legislature. The legislature has made it so easy for kids, for parents to say, I'm just going to homeschool my child. You get after them because they're not attending school. You get after them because of behavior issues or whatever. And the first thing the parents do is, well, I'll just keep them home. And they have made it so easy to do that. And that mindset, that sets it in motion. Well, even our own legislatures don't feel like it's a problem. They've opened it up so much. And, I graduated from a private school. Now, I went to public school for 10 and a half years, and then I graduated private school. I taught public school for 33 years. And, I can say in those 33 years of teaching, I was not late one day because I thought it was that important. And it used to be when we got our own subs, I would only take off if I could get a certain sub because, they would do the job that I wanted done with my kids. But until the legislature steps up and changes this whole nonsense of just letting people do what they want, our school system's suffering bad. Now, as far as what we can do, we can continue to offer our CTE program, which is one of the best in the state, if not the best. We have great instructors over there. They went to national events. They win a lot of awards. And not just winning the awards. Those kids really know what they're doing when they come out there. So, and then, of course, offering the college prep classes. We have it where the students can participate in and come out of the CNA while they're in high school, or LPN, excuse me. And then something else we could do to help out, to change the mindset, is to teach a little bit more about finances. So that's my answers. And I hope I didn't make anybody mad.
Dr. Stewart, what are the public health consequences due to chronic absenteeism. And you've already talked a little about that. Can you elaborate a little more?
Yeah, of course. So what we know is students that have chronic absenteeism are more likely to have serious health outcomes as adults. So persons that are less educated tend to die earlier, so die prematurely. They engage in unhealthy behaviors like smoking, alcohol use, drug use, and they have increased rates of obesity and diabetes, which we're no stranger of here in West Virginia. We also know that infant mortality rates are higher in persons that give birth that haven't graduated compared to those that have graduated and gone on to college. And this starts early. It starts in preschool, kindergarten, first grade. We know that if those students are chronically absent, that they're less likely to be proficient readers at third grade, and then they're 4 times more likely to drop out. In Nicholas County in 2023, 57.6% of our fourth graders were not proficient in reading. So over half of our fourth graders are now 4 times at risk to drop out if this continues. This doesn't change, or it actually gets worse between 8th through 12th grades. Chronic absenteeism in those grades, they're 7 times more likely to drop out. And we know that if they can continue on, graduate high school, and go into secondary school from there, they're going to be able to live 9 years longer than their peers versus those that have dropped out. So it's a serious problem that could lead to long-term health consequences, difficulties with employment, like you guys have already been talking about, financial consequences, and then consequences for the overall health and well-being of the community.
I just want to throw this out. During COVID, and I hate to even talk about it, bring it up because we're beyond it, but kids were having to be educated online because that was the only thing that could be done. But at that time, do you think that parents thought, okay, my kid's okay, my kid's doing okay? So now we're past COVID, and they think, my kid's okay if they don't go to school because they were okay during COVID.
Yeah, I think that's a complicated question. I don't think parents think their kids were okay. I think that it was really high stress, not only in the homes of those trying to do virtual school and seeing the numbers that we see, and then seeing the significant mental health and physical health outcomes post-COVID. What we have done is we've moved into a new era. We're in kind of an era where we are living with COVID, and we're moving on to different recommendations regarding what to do with sick that are more in line with respiratory guidance. And so I think everyone understands that kids all learn differently, but what we have found after that little experiment called COVID is that we know that kids tend to thrive more in in-person school environments. And I will say that my children certainly demonstrated that.
Dr. Tom Show, as I said, we're now in post-COVID pandemic. So how do you advise parents regarding symptoms that necessitate keeping their children home from school?
Well, there's certain exclusionary symptoms which a child should stay home from, and we try to educate the parents about that. Certainly fever is always number one, but then you have physical signs, vomiting, a severe cough with breathing difficulty, diarrhea, even minor things like pink eye. Those are injuries. Those may be exclusionary symptoms, but at the same time we try to stress to the parents the concept of symptoms without signs, which are really mostly just complaints. And we try to stress that they can go to school if they have a complaint or just a symptom, maybe a headache, their back hurts, their belly hurts, that's not a reason to stay home. I always tell them if your symptom is not going to get worse or better, if it's not going to get worse at school, then go to school. Go to school with a headache, go to school with a bellyache, go to school with a backache. You're not going to get better at home. And we try to stress that. We also try to stress that as soon as that symptom or the sign has decreased, kind of what we talked about before with the diagnosis, that they should get to school. They don't have to feel perfect. They don't have to feel well. That there is much more benefit in going to school, getting through the school day, than there is sitting at home and not accomplishing anything, falling farther behind, and as it's already been touched on, that makes it much more difficult to catch up. Then you have to catch up, and then you miss what happened that day, as already been mentioned. And then there's a little bit of the throwing up your hands. So again, we try to stress that you stay home for the exclusionary symptoms. You go when it's symptoms without true signs.
Good information. Okay, Noah, do you attend school regularly, correct? Yeah. So what value do you see in regular attendance?
So school teaches you a lot of things, but probably the most important is, like learning. Like learning builds as it goes on. Like you do a math lesson in class, it's some kind of algebra. Then the next day you're plotting points with those equations. How can you plot the points if you don't know the equations or how to do them? Also responsibility. You can't just not do something because you don't want to, you don't have to, you don't need to. That's not even like a productive mentality to have in the first place. And then there's also the social aspect. School is where I see most of my friends only. Like there's here I go again. School is like yeah, a place. You put all these kids together in one place, they're going to talk to each other, and that's good for them. You make friends, you learn how to work out conflicts, it's important, to be able to cooperate with others productively, and I think regular attendance really solidifies that.
It's good.
So wise words from a ninth grader there. Okay, Mr. Roberts, how does chronic absenteeism affect the workforce in the long term? We already know that, the soft skills are affecting the workforce. So in long term, what happens to the workforce?
I think we have gaps in skills, reduction in competencies. I'd say we look at lower levels of productivity, higher levels of training required, which it basically increases the cost that some of the employers are going to have to put out for that. Lower educational attainment. What I hope is that, I'll just say the impact. The impact to me is that some of the students with chronic absenteeism, they are less competitive on a local, state, and national, and even on a global level in many aspects. Whether you choose post-secondary education, whether you choose military, you're trying to compete for a job, you're trying to compete for pay, things like that. So those absence of soft skills make you less competitive. And I think if we're looking at it from just even a county perspective, it makes our county less competitive, throughout the rest of the state. I also think that chronic absenteeism carries into the workforce. So, as a hiring manager, I've actually been a hiring manager in some sort of managerial capacity for 30 years. You're trying to fill those voids, you're trying to fill those slots, you're reducing your productivity, you're putting your customers at risk. Just a lot of things like that when you're on hook to deliver a service or a product, and you do not, just based on the absenteeisms that are carried through from the school system or from the schools. And I honestly think, just a lesser educated workforce is a less effective workforce all the way around. I think that's the capstone of it right there.
Mayor Johnson, how can a community help struggling families be motivated to send their children to school?
Well, a lot of people dislike the word intervention, but when we started our truancy program originally, probably in 2010 or 2012, we intervened at 5 absences, and we brought the whole family in, and we thought the parents needed services, we provided that. If we thought the kid needed extra help, we did that. We tried to solve transportation problems, and I think at one time, and I don't know how you calculate this there, the attendance rate was at 94, 95%. I don't know what that means, but at the end of our program, and what happened to the truancy program that existed here is the legislature passed a law that says parents can now assign notes for unexcused absences, and the whole thing sort of fell apart after that because we lost our enforcement. And if it was a child's problem, we made the child responsible in one way or another. If it was the parent's problem, we tried to provide services, and we used there was under the abuse and neglect law, there was a failure to provide education. So we used that. And of course, there was truancy under the juvenile law. So we had lots of tools, and we brought the kid in at 5 absences, and we worked with them, worked with their family, tried to find out what the problem was, and we gave them every services that was necessary in order to solve that problem. Didn't always work, but we got our attendance rate up to 94, 95%, and that, and that all came about. The previous superintendent, Beverly Kingering, came and asked, said, we have a terrible problem, can we solve it? So we've tried to bring everybody together and have a meeting, and as I said earlier, do a multidisciplinary approach. And I want to follow up with what Gary said. What it results in, the lack of education, it results in poverty, it results in ignorance, and it results in government dependence for the people who live here. And, they never get out and provide for themselves, and they get used to that dependence, and it becomes generational. And, that's a cycle that we have to break, and we do that through education and making children go to school.
Wow. Good.
Mayor Schaefer, chronic absenteeism becomes an issue for an entire community. How do you think local communities in Nicholas County can encourage school attendance?
So I think there's a lot of ways the local community can help, but I honestly think that probably the real issue is ownership of the problem. I've served both on the local school improvement council at the elementary school, and recently the local school improvement council at the high school. And I can remember attending a meeting at the high school, and I carried back the absentee numbers to a group of movers and shakers. That day there was about 40 at the Rotary meeting. And I told them the numbers that Candy Rapp had shared with us at the local school improvement council at the high school, and they were astounded, as I was. Now, I think what happened that day is everybody was just totally moved by, oh my gosh, the kids aren't coming to school, but they looked at it as a Board of Education problem, not a community problem. So I think that, first of all, for the community to help, I think, we've got to have some education and understanding that it's not a board problem, it's a society problem, it's our community problem. It's systemic to a lot of other things that spin from the fact that kids don't attend school, and you've heard all the various issues. But I also think what would be a good idea is to regularly somehow publish and educate our local community what the absentee numbers are and what the goal is we're trying to get to, and take it in bites. When Terrence gave the numbers of, that he got where the state is, and, we're right in the average, I think it would be neat to set a goal for Nicholas County Schools, say 20% to start with, and then get the whole community engaged, because the problems, I think, are deeper than, wider than even I can comprehend, that cause chronic absence. But I also think there's a lot of pieces and a lot of players that could help if they had an understanding of the problem. And, there's got to be situations where a neighbor can encourage a neighbor, say, hey, your child's got to go to school. We're trying to work on this community goal of getting Nicholas County to, 20% or less absenteeism. So there's a whole lot that community can do, but I think also it's an education piece for all.
Spot on. Okay, we're in our final round of questions. And at this point, we have identified the definition of chronic absenteeism. We've identified mindsets of parents, struggles that families face, health issues, including mental health issues, academic and workforce consequences. These final questions will address positive solutions to improve attendance. And actually, they've already kind of touched on some of those right now. We just heard, Mayor Johnson talking about bringing families together. Mayor Schaefer saying that it is a community problem, and setting a goal is an excellent way to start. So we're going to address those in a positive manner, and we'll start with Mr. Williams. Superintendent Beam has already posted about a program, Attendance Matters 9 Days or Less for Student Success. So can you please describe this program, when it will be initiated, and how will you be able to measure the data? Because again, as Mayor Schaefer said, that's something we need to put out to the community so they can be following this.
Yes, we, within the county, we started coming up with an attendance slogan primarily, and each local school improvement council has an attendance committee. And so we work with them on the county level as well as the school level. So our attendance slogan this year is "Attendance Matters, 9 days or less for school success." And so what we have done is we have developed banners to put in every school, and we've worked to provide every student with a magnet that we could share with families to hang on their refrigerator or elsewhere that talks about the importance of attendance. It has a school calendar that tells when students will not be in school. It has a little slogan that missing 10 of the school year equals 1 month of instruction. It also says 0 to 9 days is 95.1 attendance, and then going down to 18 plus days. Currently, students attend school 180 days, 6 months. And so what we're trying to do is develop that mindset of the importance of coming to school, keeping track of this. And so we're hoping that parents will utilize these calendars that we've made up, that we've distributed. Schools are doing incentive programs to try to encourage students to come to school. Elementary students love coming to school. As evidenced by, I was at Valley River the first morning, and children were coming up to me. They didn't know me, hugging me, giving me high fives, happy to be there. But as you progress up into high school, a lot of times there's not high fives or glad to be there. Some students, yes. Most students, no. So we're trying to change within our school setting, our climate, our school climate, and our school culture. And it was talked about with utilizing the multidisciplinary teams. The state is working on what's called a multi-system of support, where we try to work, a lot of agencies work together, much like this panel discussion, work together in a multi-systems approach to support students. As far as data goes, I track monthly our attendance counts, and so I think that, as Mayor Schaefer mentioned, may be good to share with the community and to see how the community could assist in engaging students and in engaging their communities.
Well, it sounds like it's a positive goal, positive program to start. And the calendar, I know that you talked about earlier about, parents planning vacations during the school year, which I'm going to say, as a parent with small children many, many years ago, I'm sure we probably took a trip during the school year. But I think maybe that calendar will help them plan that trip around some days that the kids are off from school and they already know that they're off from school, so maybe that will be helpful there.
And a lot of times, Mrs. Taylor, last year especially, students, when you would tell them how many absences that they had, whether excused or unexcused at the time, they were shocked to realize how many days of school that they had missed.
So hopefully the calendar will help parents to see those numbers,
We hope so.
change that mindset. So, Mr. Bean, we just heard about this great program that has been initiated. Are there any other ways that the Nicholas County Board of Education is exploring to help improve attendance among students and teachers?
Our absenteeism among our employees is as poor as our attendance of our students. And there's reasons for that. And I hope this does not come across as being a negative thing. It's just the reality of it. Mr. Prime mentioned earlier, talking about the legislature and their need to act on some things. Several years ago, I mean, all the years that I was a teacher from 73 to 2007, the legislature allowed you to save your days and turn them in for either extra days towards your retirement. It couldn't get you to retirement, but it did add to your retirement, or you could save those days to help pay for your insurance, to keep the insurance going. When I retired in 2007, I was able to save 4 extra years of retirement, which gave me 4 extra years of credit. If they would go back to that, just that alone, if they would do that, they would make a huge difference, because now our employees don't think there's any reason to save their days. They will call, when I was at Pocahontas, they'd tell us how many more days I've got, because I want to make sure I use them up. They had no intention to save them. But we try to plead for them to show professionalism and to set the right example for our kids by coming to work and being there on time. You can't complain to the children about not showing up, or you're not showing up either. Right. So that's one thing. We also have, the state does give us a $500 incentive for employees who miss 4 or less days. And our county stepped up last year, and it did not include service. The state does not include service. But our county said, our service people are just as important as our professionals, and we want to offer them the same opportunity, which we've done that. I wished I would have gathered together that information to see how many of our employees were chronically absent according to the form that we had. Now, with students, so it's a little bit different. I was a grade school principal, and I'm watching for your card over there. I know you're going to get me in a second. Elementary schools do a variety of things. They have, when I was a Zilla, we had it called Zilla bucks. And if they came to school every day for 5 days, they get a Zilla buck. And at the end of the semester, of the 9 weeks, we would have a little store set up, and they could turn those in. That's great. Elementary kids love that stuff. It doesn't work quite as much when they get a little bit older, but that's some of the things you can do. They also limit how many after-school field trips you can take if you don't come to school. That's another option. That's not a negative thing. That's to encourage them to come to school. One of the things is we need to make coming to school, especially for our older kids, more something they want to do, something they look forward to do. We're trying to do it with our CTE program by making 1-year completers, which gives kids an opportunity to get a completer, be a completer in 1 year instead of 2 years. So hopefully those kids that come to be a senior decide they want to stay that year and not just come a half a day and get a completer in one of the other areas. The last thing is that we do, the high schools do, the middle schools do, which I don't agree with, but I understand why they do it, is they exempt students for exams if they come to school. I think that sets them up to fail at a higher level because they've never had to take finals before when they get to college they struggle. I see it. Go, Brad.
I know these are hard questions with hard answers, but I think that we do need to get this information out there. Mr. Perrine, so how can the Nicholas County Board of Education encourage principals and staff become engaged in these programs being developed to improve attendance?
Okay, before I answer that question, I want to back up. There are some wonderful homeschool parents out there. So I wasn't thrown off on homeschool parents because some of them truly they make sure that their students are successful, but for the most part, it's not happening. All right, so first of all, I think that our staff, for the most part, and it's just like any other business. You have people that aren't good people. You have police officers that aren't good. You have people that work at Walmart, Lowe's that don't do their jobs. We have teachers that don't do their jobs. But I think for the most part, that most educators want to make a difference, and student success is the best way to achieve that. And I really believe that most of our teachers emphasize attendance. I know at the grade school levels, several schools do it different ways, but I know when I taught, I had attendance on the board. Anyway, if I had bell-to-bell attendance, 100% all day, then they got a letter. And once they spelled attendance, they would get extra recess time. Elementary kids would work for that. They'll work for extra recess time. And what was bad is when they get that bell-to-bell attendance, we didn't always do the extra recess that day. So I wouldn't tell them when we were going to do it because they wouldn't want to miss the extra recess, so they kept coming to school. So it was a win-win situation. But I really believe that I don't think we so much have to encourage our staff and our principals about this. They hear it all the time. They hear it all the time. And they know how important it is. It's the mindset of the parents that we have to change. And it's not always parents. This day and time, we're dealing with grandparents, with aunts and uncles, a lot of foster parents. And, you know, it's tough on a grandparent to be the heavy, so to speak. But a lot of times that's all these kids have. So I don't think our principals and staff, I don't think they're doing a terrible job, but boy, they have a lot of obstacles to have to work against. So,
Thank you. Dr. Stewart, how does investing in education regarding the importance of attendance improve your child's health?
Yeah, so we've heard for the last two rounds, now in the third round, that chronic absenteeism can lead to poor health and health-related consequences. And so the saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, really rings true here. The Centers for Disease Control have a model. It's called whole school, whole community, whole child. And I think that's what we're all talking about here. It's that it takes a village approach. It can't just be up to the child itself or the parent himself or the school. We all take a part in this. We really have to shift the culture. We really have to focus on social and emotional development, especially in our younger kids, and really create that love of learning early on. So things that we can do as families, like in our own households, is making sure our families have healthy foods to eat, help them be at their best potential so they're healthiest to come to school. Do things with them. Kids model behavior. So we know that when kids are active and they're sleeping well and they have less screen time, they're going to be more engaged and more likely to be healthy and able to go to school. As community partners, we are very lucky in Nicholas County, and I've said this coming from another county, it's very special here. This community really cares about kids. If you go to Veterans Memorial Park in the spring, that's all you need to see. That's multi-generational families, people walking around the park, they're at soccer, they're doing Little League, there's soccer happening at the football field and football happening as well. People are really there to invest in the kids. We can't stop here with just like at Veterans Park. We really have to think about how we can solve some of the bigger issues like poverty, like we've talked about. We know that that's a significant driver for absenteeism. So how can we really build our economy with new businesses, their solar expansion and tourism, and reduce poverty to really give our community the best chance they can at being healthy from before they go to school and as they graduate and then join the workforce and build a healthy community overall.
Dr. Tomcha, when you encounter a family with children who do not regularly attend school, as a respected pediatrician in this community, how can you change their mindset and encourage them to send their children to school?
Well, we do see a lot of children that don't see the value in school, and we try to discuss the advantages of school. First and foremost, their friends, which is the primary driver, especially in the older kids. It's their peers and peer relations. And we saw that degrade during COVID. We saw how we now see a lot of mental health problems from there. We don't discuss that. We just talk about you get to see your friends, you get to do things, you get to interact with them. You learn skills that will help you in life. And you get to participate in extracurricular activities, which are very important for kids, whether it's sports, student council, or other groups and activities. And they get to do those things when they attend school. But most important, we tell them about the advantage that it can be to their future opportunities in life and in jobs and in advancement and in income they often light up when you start talking about money. And we tell them, yeah, you can make more money when you go to high school and you finish. And this kind of touches on what Noah said when he said, a lot of the kids don't see the value of education because they're going to get a job somewhere. And it's not just about the jobs. And it's a little bit abstract, but we tell them that education and learning facts isn't just for that fact. It develops the brain. Learning develops the brain in many other ways. I can't remember Algebra 2 from high school, but learning Algebra 2 and other skills, history and things, it develops parts of the brain. It makes you a more interesting person. It helps you interact better with people. It makes you more intelligent, and it may make you a better person. And most important, it makes you a better problem solver for all the things that are come up in life. And we try to stress that. You will be a more competent person if you stay in school and you attend school. It's not just about jobs and money, it's making you hopefully a better person.
Well, thank you, and thank you for encouraging your family because of this very great information. It's wise information. Noah, from a student's perspective, what are some ideas to incentivize students to attend school? I want to say we know that the elementary kids, it doesn't take a whole lot to get them excited and incentivized, but what are we looking at for middle and high school students?
I think one of the biggest things we can do is just pay attention to the kids, watch how they learn, make sure they're doing okay in life. You have to make sure their parents are responsible. They want their kids to be better and smart and actually send them to school. I think facilities are an issue, which, there's no immediate fix for them, but, could we just keep the bathrooms as clean as possible? There's lunches. Sometimes they give us stuff that I don't want to eat, It would be nice to have some options, or if we can't even have options, just maybe some salt and pepper packets. Not everybody drinks milk. I don't drink milk, so if I don't want to bring a water bottle to school or walk to the water fountain every 5 seconds to get a drink, I'm just out of luck. The socialization is an important part. A lot of kids feel like they don't have friends or like they're not important, but everybody can make a friend. There's always someone that wants to talk to you and cares about you. You just, I don't know, it's hard to find sometimes, but school sometimes is the place you find those people. That's about it. I just think that we need to make school more enjoyable and homey,
Welcoming.
Yeah.
Okay. And, I think, your comments of pay attention to the kids, that could be one way businesses, as Commander Schaefer said, it's not always about the money. That could be one way a business could send someone from their business to the school to be just a role model, just interact with the kids. That could be a goal that could be easily attained if we can get everyone on board to solve the problem. Mr. Roberts, how can our community improve responsibility and dependability in the workforce, not only for our kids, but for everyone?
So, the old cliche, it takes a village to raise a child, I think it falls true in many aspects. And one of those is the exact area we're talking about here. I think we need to encourage attendance at every point when you're looking from the child's perspective. If we have attendance issues, we need to catch them quick. That's anybody in the community. If I'm out and I see somebody in the school, and I used to be an offender, so I know how this works. You're walking through the grocery store, you're walking through Go-Mart, you're 16, 17, you've got a driver's license, somebody says, why are you not in school today? So, that's that accountability that you might not have at home shows up in the community. So, you can do that in a friendly manner. It doesn't have to be, accusations where you put them on the defense all of a sudden. I think that we need to teach folks that the skills, so let's promote extracurricular activities. It's fun, it's engaging, it bonds kids together, it teaches them about different personalities, it teaches them about wins and losses, how to cope with the win, how to cope with the loss, teaches you humility. And I think a lot of those skills carry directly over to the workplace. I know when I entered the Marine Corps, a lot of folks tended to be like football captains and wrestling champions and this type of thing, and they had that drive and determination that actually carried through. And I think that it also teaches you with the responsibility and be able to be dependent upon. If you're looking at the older folks, I think we need to press that it's never too old to start learning. I mean, they say when you stop learning, you stop living type thing. I'm a personal example of that. 50 some years old, and I'm going back and doing something I should have done when I was in my 20s. So I think we can look at that. Surround kids with positive people. I think it's good for adults as well as children in that aspect. They say the best way to understand something is to teach it. You're going to be asked questions. There's going to be facets of your topic that you have no idea about. So it's good for the kids to learn from the adults to have the experience. It's good for the adults to learn from the kids with the questions they have, the myriad of questions. And I think as Noah had stated, I had this on mine as well, is just feedback and improvement. Watch if you're an employer and you have somebody who you see is maybe has absenteeism, I'm struggling with that word, issues at the workplace. You engage them. Is there something going on? Is there something in your personal life that's maybe carrying into the workforce, and you can increase that responsibility and dependability level when they're not distracted by something, or you understand their distractions and you're able to compensate for that.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, how can our community help apathetic parents become positive role models?
I think as a community, we need to change our mind on what school is, and on the community as a whole. I believe many parents need to be parents again. I believe many parents, they need to get involved, they need to be present, and they need to have positive discipline. And that includes being the authority again, setting guidelines and boundaries, and giving instant feedback. And I see so many kids right now that are being raised by somebody other than parents, and it's sad to see. We have grandparents, we have great-grandparents, aunts, uncles, strangers raising these kids because they don't have the mom and dad present in their life for one reason or another. And I know that parents' work hours are crazy. But even with all the crazy hours, parents can still be a part of their kids' lives. They don't, and this is going to sound negative and I don't mean to, but quit using that as a crutch and quit using it as an excuse. Be present for your children. And as a community, I think we need to get involved more with our kids. We have sports, and I love sports, and sports are great. This past year at Summersville Middle School, we had almost 50 kids come out for football practice, play football. That's 50 kids to fill 11 spots. There was a whole lot of kids standing on the sidelines. At wrestling practice, we had over 45 kids come out to fill just a few spots on the wrestling team at Summersville Middle School. So we have a lot of options for sports, but what about the kids who don't want to play sports? What about theater? What about music? What about outings and picnics and after-school clubs? Churches, they need to do better at their outreach. Businesses, they need to do better at outreach. We need more places for kids to hang out. We need more places for kids to go and park without getting in trouble, without setting a bad example, without getting involved in stupid stuff. We need more places for kids to just be a part of. We need more positive peer pressure. We have, in certain areas of the county, are better than others because there's more availability in these areas. What about the places of Dixie? What about up Tioga? What about in the Mount Nebo, Mount Lookout area? What about Carl Mountain? What about in all the areas that just don't seem to have these outreaches? And I believe that if we had more of a community outreach, we would see more kids get involved in school because peer pressure works. Positive peer pressure works even better. And I like a line from Abraham Lincoln, a quote he said, "The philosophy of the education of one generation will be the philosophy of government of the next. If the philosophy of the current generation is absenteeism, then what will our country and community look like in the next generation?"
Mayor Johnson, how can the community become engaged and encourage the Attendance Matters program?
I agree with a lot of what Mr. Evans just said. you know, when, and not that anybody, parents and I had our 55-year class reunion last weekend. And we made, there were 100 people there. We made lifelong friends. And, you know, and that's, you went to school to get an education, but mostly you went to find a girlfriend or hang out with the guys, or, you know, those were your social contacts. And, you know, we need to promote school as a safe place to do that. And, you know, and I'm going to go a little bit out a little bit on a limb here, but another thing I think we need to do educationally, we have to have summer work programs. You know, that's another thing. When I had children before me, they were so proud to have worked, if you remember the governor's summer youth program, which they scrapped, they were so proud to have, they learned to go out and get a job. They learned to go to work every day. The first time, some of them in their family. And, you know, so I don't know how we do that, but if we had some kind of apprentice program that we could work and have these kids, and they get needed money, you know, if they come to work. And so I think that if we could do something like that, that would improve kids' outlook and give them a little extra money and teach them how to work. And, you know, and coming from the smaller community, our school was a very, very place, I think, a safe place that kids have. You know, we have so many kids in bands, so many kids. You know, we had one of the highest extracurricular participation rates in our school before the flood. I don't know what it is now, but I'd assume it's still pretty high. And I think that's important for kids wanting to go to school. Now, another thing is, and I want to give you a word of caution about this. When you mentioned Abraham Lincoln, you know, he started, the administration right after the Civil War started public education. Our public education system is under attack right now. If the West Virginia legislature continues, next year, the Hope Scholarship will take $4,500 away from the boards of education and give it to parents to homeschool if they want to, right? I mean,
2026.
So we're losing $45,000 to $5,000 per student that will no longer be able to educate our children. So public education is under attack right now, and we need to make sure that our public education system remains viable. And we need to talk to our legislators and make sure that gets done. So besides making school a nice place and providing job opportunities, and I'm sure Mayor Schaefer would agree, water and sewer operators. We have a difficult time. We go to the VOTEC every year to have an apprentice program and recruit those kids. And, you know, to a 17-year-old, water and sewer is not very romantic, but it's a good lifelong career, and you can go any place in the whole United States with those skills. So those are the kinds of programs I think that we need to develop, and we need to protect our public education system.
Okay, Mayor Schaefer, what would you say to our business community to encourage them to become partners in education, adopt the school, and work with the school in this fight against chronic absenteeism?
So what I'd like to say before I say that is, I think the elephant in the closet too is this thing. Kids can stay home from school and do what they want on this, and they find that way more interesting and fun than what they do at school. So if I ever find the genie on the bottle, everybody's going to lose their cell phone, because I think that social media causes a lot of chronic illnesses in our community. But the business community, what I want to say in a positive way is, both with the city and my private business, we have partnered in education, both at the elementary level and the high school level. And you know, I can remember back when we first partnered with the elementary school, I made all the department heads in the city go read on Dr. Seuss Day. And the resistance I got the first year was, okay, Mayor, I'll go do it. But then the next year they were signing up to go, because I think it's so rewarding. And I can't say enough about the good business environment we have in our community. And when I say that, I don't mean just the city of Somersville. I mean our county community. And so what I want to do is issue a challenge to businesses to, one, get involved with our education. But two, the next time the school system calls, and you got to know that with the various extracurricular that goes on, both school-related and non-school related, businesses are annotated with those calls. Can you make donation? Can you make donation? I mean, sometimes I come back to my office and I got a stack of 5 of them. What I think would be neat for businesses to do, next time you get that donation request and you can't meet it, say, hey, what can I do in kind in your school? What can I come and do in kind? What can I send the mechanic over? Who can I send the mechanic to talk to? Who can I send the secretary to talk to? Who can I send? So I think what we got to do as a community is change the whole environment. And with the businesses, I would say, next time they call and say, hey, will you pay $500 to put a banner up on the baseball field? Say, yeah, I will, but what else can I do? And I think that, getting involved. And the other thing I will say is the rewards from being a partner in education are unchartable. They really are. The thank you letters that we've received both in our private business and in at the city when we've gotten involved with the school at all levels. Even something as simple as providing the band their lunches for summer camp. The thank yous that we get are just so rewarding. I can't tell you how many times the elementary school kids have made my day because they thank me as Mr. President. Mr. President, thanks for visiting our school. But no, it is. And I think it's just an education that we need on all this. It works both ways, both with the community, the business community, and also our school system. The more we partner, the better foundation we're all going to build.
Well, that concludes our panel discussion. And we touched on a lot of struggles. Yes, Nella?
I'd like to add something. No offense, Mr. Mayor, but I don't think phones are the issue. I think we need more classroom engagement. Teachers give you a 5-minute lecture, then give you a worksheet and sit at their desk. I mean, they could at least walk around and make sure everyone's doing okay. And school honestly does feel like a prison at times, for lack of better words. When we're completely on lockdown, find any way we can to rebel or lash out. And when the VOTEC has us put our phones in lock boxes, it just creates some sort of distrust, disharmony, and just disconnection.
Okay. It's good to know. It's good to hear from this.
Noah's going to hope I never find that genie on the I totally respect that. Totally.
I want to see if I can go off the rail and get one more round of those cards. It's kind of a testimony real quick. So if you want to hit the timer on me. So I love my parents. My parents loved me. I come from a house full of love, but what I did not come from was a house that valued education. Neither one of my parents graduated from high school. There was no value in education. I remember my dad looked at me and said, what's the use in adding letters? So he didn't understand the concept of algebra, solving for unknown variables, stuff like that. And I don't mean this in a demeaning way, but I met Mr. Johnson. I actually had to figure this out on Thursday, March 19th, 1990. It was about 11 a.m. And I suffered from chronic absenteeism. I think I'd missed about 40 days in that semester of school. I really did. I went in front of him. I was a cocky little high school kid, and he had expressed to me that I wasn't going to graduate and I wasn't going to go in the United States Marine Corps. He caught me and got me in a little bit of a pinch. He said, if you'll attend school every day for the rest of the year, you'll be able to retain your grades and you can go into the Marine Corps. So when you senior skip day, I was sitting in high school. I really was. I fulfilled my obligation. He fulfilled his obligation. He let me graduate high school. I kept my grades. I moved on. In 2010, I remember sitting at 38 years old, started a bachelor's degree, and I was sitting in my living room trying to teach myself the FOIL method of algebra. I didn't care about algebra in high school. I had no idea. I spent 13 hours trying to understand first in, last out, whatever that means now, however you look at that. But and all through life, I had struggled. I didn't know how to write papers. I didn't know how to write a resume. I didn't know how to speak. I didn't know how to do these things. And that followed me all through my life and still follows me today. Last year, I decided to attempt my master's degree, and I still feel the ripple of that. They say it takes 3 generations to break a family tradition, curse, whatever you want to call it. And that's what I'm looking to do with mine. I mean, I push my kids to go to school. And if you're dying, drag your leg out the door and take it to school with you and hold it beside of you in the lunchroom. But I think, I'm a testimony. I know what happened. I didn't value the education system, and it has followed me throughout my life. And I struggled. I had to work harder. I became an engineer at like 28, 29 years old. I didn't have the education, so I just worked double shifts so I could learn that way. So it just put me at such a disadvantage, and I want my kids to have better than that, and I know that they're going to attain that through education.
Thank you. That's great testimony. And it also shows that there was struggles, there were problems there, but someone helped him along the way.
Yes, ma'am. Those 2 men down there?
He succeeded.
Both the mayors.
So in conclusion, I just want to say that, our children are the heartbeat of our community. They're the architects of the future. So to build a brighter tomorrow, we have to come together as we have talked about today, and we have to invest in our kids, as we heard from Noah. Pay attention to our kids. We need to encourage them to attend school. This is a collective responsibility, and it requires dedication and support from every segment of this community. Elected officials, businesses, teachers, school personnel, ministers, healthcare providers, community leaders, they all play a crucial role in this mission. So by working hand in hand, we can change the mindsets, and we've already heard, that's going to be a hurdle to do, but we can do it. We need to demonstrate the value of education. Regular school attendance. It enhances academic performance. We already heard how Gary struggled because he didn't learn algebra in school. We need to improve health. We heard from Dr. Tonsho and Dr. Stewart how attendance is going to help improve our health in the long run. We need to prepare our youth for the future success in the workforce. So data and resources need to be readily available for the parents. We need to be, the parents are the front line of attendance for the kids. They are. So we need to have this data available for them, but we also need to have it available for the communities. If we're going to ask the community to wrap their arms around our kids, we need to have the data available for that. We need to encourage parents to participate in the Attendance Matters program so that we can get back on track to regular school attendance. So our kids need us now more than ever. So together, I think we can make a difference in their lives and secure a brighter future for the entire community. So I want to thank you for your time today. I think it's valuable information, but we hope we can come back after first semester and maybe have some updates, hear some success. So thank you for being here today.